Why success can feel like betraying the people you love. Most people think they're stuck because they don't know enough. That's actually a lie. Most people play small, not because of lack of information, but because they actually feel like it's a betrayal of the people that they care about. They don't want to grow because they're concerned that the people that the most important people to them are not going to grow with them. Hey, I'm Scott Beckford. This is the I Love Mortgage Brokering podcast. This week, I want to share with you the 4 limiting beliefs, barriers that people have where they self-sabotage. And one of them is when you feel like you're betraying those people that you love. And I'm going to share an example from my own life, but also some other examples. This is from a book called The Big Leap, and I'm going through it right now in our daily mortgage mindset daily calls that we're doing. And this book I've read 5 times, and every time I've read it, I have found something new in it. And it's amazing. Sometimes I read it and I go, I don't remember even reading this part. And it's not because the book has changed, it's because I've changed and I'm seeing a new perspective on the content. And so the book's by a guy named Gay Hendricks. I highly recommend it if you haven't had a chance to check it out. I've actually read numerous books of his. And I'm going to jump into one of these limiting beliefs. But before I do, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Omwell. Omwell is an amazing tool for mortgage brokers, helps them to stay engaged with their database, sends out these reports that show their home equity buying power. If there's opportunities for refinance, it's very, very effective. Open rates are 60 to 80%. Check them out at omwell.ca. And let's jump into this episode. All right, so there's actually 4 different limiting beliefs. And this comes from this work, Gay Hendricks, who was a Stanford University professor, as well as a counselor, and ended up being a coach. He coached Michael Dell from Dell Computers back in the 90s. This guy's wicked smart, but he's really good at just giving you a perspective on things that I hadn't seen this before. And when I first read it, I was like, it's like a coin clicked in my mind. I'm like, oh, that totally makes sense. And so he says there's 4 barriers, limiting beliefs. He calls them upper limit problems. And the reason people don't hit that next level or whatever that is, we don't reach our potential. And it could be financially, it could be health, it could be relationships. The reason we don't hit it is because we're one of these limiting beliefs is getting in the way. And it's a story that we have often inherited from childhood, and it's a false story, and it's so deeply embedded we don't even realize it. And so the first barrier that he talks about in this book is I am fundamentally flawed in some way. And so this is something that people will, and he says most people have at least 2 of these, one for sure. Everybody's going to have at least one of these hidden barriers. I personally have 2 that I'll share that are absolutely resonate with me and have definitely affected my ability to grow in personally, financially, relationally, all these areas. And I'll let you know what I'm working on now. 5th reading, I'm like, oh, I got a new one I just missed, and I'm working on it today. And in any case, so the first one is called I'm fundamentally flawed in some way. And what he means by that is that it's that we have this belief that there's something wrong with us. And so he tells a story of a guy in the book that he counseled or that he coached named Carl. And Carl's dad had a really bad divorce with Carl's mom. And so every time he looked at Carl, he couldn't help but see his ex. And it basically tainted their entire relationship where he inherited this, I'm somehow flawed or bad because of the way my dad sees me. And it wasn't even, it had nothing to do with him at all. It had to do with his mom and the dad's and that whole relationship. But it affected all sorts of things in his life because he felt like, oh, I can't do this because I'm flawed. I don't have that. And so that is a very powerful barrier. And again, I'd recommend going to the book. It's really, really good. But that's not one that I struggle with. And the reason I don't think I struggle with that one is because when I was a kid growing up, my mom was very loving and supportive. And I often joke that if she said to me, if I said to her, Mom, I want to be a bank robber, she'd be like, oh my, you're going to be the best bank robber. She's been so supportive. She's the most positive. If somebody was speeding and cutting people off in traffic, she'd say something like, oh, they're probably just trying to get to the hospital to take care of a family member. Like she saw the good in everybody. And so that's a flaw that I don't feel, I feel like I think this is one of the positive things I've inherited. I feel like I can accomplish almost anything. It's like, even if it's not true. And, I've got a sign in my office that says, we do this not because it's easy, but because we thought it was easy and I started. And that's pretty much my whole life. Everything I've done, the mortgage company, the training company, everything, how hard can it be? In most cases, a lot harder than I realized, but then I get too dumb to quit and then I'm in it and some things work, some things don't. But the idea is that I actually believe I have that underlying self-belief that I'll figure it out. So that's the first one. Maybe that's you. Maybe it's not me. The second is the fear of disloyalty or abandonment. And what I mean is that you can't expand to your full success because you're breaking some fundamental family rule or family belief that you feel that you're struggling with. And so for me, this one was money. And so I grew up in a family, we didn't have a lot of money. And my mom has a religious background, and she would read this story to me of the rich fool who, basically screwed a whole bunch of people over, got all this money. And then at the end of the story, he dies. And it's like, oh my God, this is terrible. And I was like, 4 years old. Again, my mom, lovely person. She read that book to me so many times that I was terrified of making money. And I remember the first time I ever made more money in a month as a mortgage broker than I did in a year as a paramedic. And it messed me up, man. I tell you, my business I literally drove the business off a cliff after that. And I struggled because I felt like somehow I was being disloyal to my family, that I'm like, I'm going to be this evil person that's going to die in their sleep. And he dies in his sleep, by the way, in the story. And the point is that it took me going to coaching, to get mentoring and being around other people. And that I don't believe I have that anymore. I believe that has been, because now I'm like, no, money's just a tool. And you can use it for bad things. Sure, you can do bad things with it. And you can make money and you can screw people over to make money. Or you can create so much value that you happen to get. And that's what I believe. I believe if you create enough value for other people, I don't feel bad about making money, right? I don't feel, and even this idea, and this is something I believe, I don't believe in giving back as if I've taken something from someone that you have to give. And I got this idea from Dan Sullivan, and he says, and I agree with this. He says, when you give back, it assumes you've taken more than your share. But if you add, imagine, so I think about, the Facebook, just the I Love Mortgage Broking Facebook group. There are 10,000 people. The number of deals that have been traded, and so it's been millions and billions of dollars of mortgages that other people have been able to benefit from. And so when you're adding value, you shouldn't feel like you have to give back. It should be just like, I can give because I want to give, but it's not from a sense of guilt. It's a sense of, I created 10 times, 20 times value, therefore getting paid for it is absolutely acceptable. And so that is a mindset shift I no longer struggle with. But the idea of fear of disloyalty or abandonment to your family's unspoken rule or spoken rule. So that's the second one. So the first one is, I'm fundamentally flawed in some way. The second is a fear of disloyalty or abandonment to your family. The third is more success brings a bigger burden. And this is one that I have struggled with. The way I showed up the first time, which was I did not believe, and at the core of me, if you push me, I would say, I do not believe I can have a successful business and a successful relationship at the same time. I didn't believe it. And if you push me, I'd be like, yeah, something's got to give. And I ended up divorced because of it. And had to go to, went to therapy and counseling. And I'm like, oh, I have issues. I didn't realize I had issues. And so the thing is that I had this belief that you could not do both. Then I met my friend Wally Eliberry, who is far more successful than me. He's got a mortgage guy down in Texas, and he's written a book called 24/7 Mindset. He is far more successful than me. He works way less hours. He makes way more money. He runs a really good team, and he's got a great relationship, and he takes care of it. And I'm like, whoa, I think my problem is I hadn't seen before a model where I was admired somebody who was able to do this. Because I've seen people who are not ambitious, and they go, oh, I'm just going to hang out and and do my thing with my kids, and not really. And that didn't never inspire me. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. It's just me. But then I saw the people who worked themselves half to death, and I'm like, well, I guess that's my model. And so I saw this model, and I was able to reshape it. But it also came when I'm engaged now. Again, I didn't think I'd ever get married again, but here I am. And I met this amazing girl, and I remember at the beginning of the relationship, I'm like, man, this feels really, really like could be something. And so even at the beginning of a relationship, I said, I got this book I want us to read. It's called The Big Leap. And it's because I have a limiting belief that I cannot simultaneously have a successful business and a successful relationship. And so we read this with me, and we'll talk through it. And she found her limiting beliefs and I found mine. And it was very healing and helpful. And I'm now engaged, and I'm convinced I would not have got engaged, and I would not have had the business continue to grow over the last year if I still believed that false belief of more success creates a bigger problem. So that's the third barrier. So first barrier, as a quick recap, fundamentally flawed in some way. So then when you reach for your level of success, you have to pull back because you feel like, oh my gosh, somehow I'm not worthy. The second is being disloyal or abandoning your family or your roots. The third is bigger success creates a bigger burden. And then the last barrier, and I'll come back to the barrier that I'm working on right now. The last barrier is the crime of outshining somebody if you reach your potential. I'm going to make X look bad. And so I'd been sharing this with some of the brokers at Bricks, and one of my agents emailed me, and she said, oh my gosh, this is so me. I have my entire life. I have been afraid to I've been outshining my sister. Whenever I lean in and be myself, everybody sort of, they put me down. Whenever I grow, this can show up to somebody. Let's say you're in your family, you finally start having success and nobody seems happy for you. And they start kind of putting you down. You're like, what's going on? And then what happens is you pull back because you're like, I don't want them to feel bad. And I want to maintain the relationship, and because you're outshining them. So that, again, that's not one that I have not bumped into that one. For me, it's been barrier 2 and 3. That's the more success. And so again, part of the whole thing is that just the awareness of like what's going on. So when it's happening, wait a second, I see what's happening here. And then you can choose a different path. And something I say all the time is that what happens is that these things get so embedded in us, these stories. Like, so my mother telling me that even if I wanted to be a bank robber, I'd be a good one. I have this story that you repeat enough times, it becomes a standard, and then the standard becomes an identity. So my identity is, I'll figure it out. Like, how hard can it be? That has served me really well most of the time. The story of money equals evil. Be careful if you get money, what's going to happen to you? And then I'm like, that was not a story that served me. And so I had to replace that story and then replace the standard and replace the identity that came along with it. And now I absolutely have that. I believe that one is 98% solved. But you're going to have one of them. And so the reason I share this is because even though we're in the mortgage business, we have, we talk about the market, we talk about all the things that are going on. What's going on between your ears matters more than any of it, because there are people in this market that are having record years, that as difficult as it is, they're absolutely crushing it, and they're in the same market. So when somebody's getting a completely different result in the same, you got to ask yourself, what do they believe that I don't believe? Or what are they doing and often the belief leads to the doing. Their beliefs are different, therefore they're doing something different. And I think that the key to unlock your potential is not tactics. It's not, I'm sure all that stuff that helps. Great, whatever. But the mindset piece is absolutely critical. And if you don't get that, you're never going to be able to turn the corner in this. So as I said, the fifth barrier or the fifth reading of this book for me, I'm going through it again. And I realized, you know what I've fallen into, because the business I'm in now is far more complex than anything I've ever built. I've always said most of my businesses have been like volleyball, beach volleyball, bump, set, spike. There's 2 or 3 people. If I don't hit it, you hit it. It's all good. The current business, Bricks, we've got 20 employees, 400 some agents, did 2.7 billion last year. It is way more complex. It is more like a football team where you got offense, defense, there's like coaches, it is complex. And so I have the thing that I've been bumping into is that the bigger it gets, the more complex it gets, means it gets more difficult. And I have to consciously stop and catch myself. Wait a second. No, Scott, that's not true, because the bigger you get, the more great people you can bring on, the more people can specialize, the more they can get in their zone of genius. And in their zone of genius, you're going to be able to so then I have to consciously catch myself, because even if you listen to my podcast, I would say things like, you every time you complete a level in the mortgage business, you get rewarded with a new, more difficult level. Not true. Like, again, if I believe that, then what happens is as soon as I get another level of growth, I am looking for all of the things that are going to make this really painful, instead of being in a mindset of like, I'm actually going to solve this. The game gets easier the further up you go. And so that's currently the barrier that I caught in this fifth reading, and I'm working on. And I actually believe that I will absolutely overcome this one, just like the previous ones that I had. It's not totally done yet. I hope anyway, I wanted to share this with you. I think that this is a framework that's really useful. The book is amazing. And so quick recap, 4 barriers are: I'm fundamentally flawed. You're not, by the way. Second is there's a fear of disloyalty or abandonment to your family or people that matter to you. The third is more success brings a bigger burden. Also not true. Can be true. Doesn't have to be. Look at Richard Branson. Guy builds these massive businesses. He's not involved in all of them, right? He's an example of somebody who obviously doesn't believe that, because if he did, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing. And then the fourth is the crime of outshining somebody, because you don't want to reach your potential because you're going to make someone else look bad, family member, friend, whatever. And when those barriers come up, if you're aware of them, you catch yourself and go, wait a second, I can choose something different. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Scott Peckford. This is the I Love Mortgage Brokering podcast. This week, I decided to just dive into mindset because I love that stuff. Hopefully you found this useful. If you did, shoot me an email, scott@ilovemortgagebrokering.com. I love hearing from you guys. And if you're not on my email list, I send out a Peckford's Playbook email once a week where I share something that I've learned, some links, as well as it's either mindset or tactics. You can get that if you go to my social accounts. It should be, if you click on this, you should be able to find the link to that. And if you're interested in our Mortgage Mindset Daily, you can also hit me up for that. It's something that we're doing. And it's been a ton of fun. We had 100 people show up to the first session, and I'm very excited about helping brokers just unlock that. What's between your ears matters more than what's happening in the market, 1,000%. As I always say, there's no problem in your mortgage business that someone else has already solved. Your problem is who's got the answer. My hope is that this podcast provides some of those answers. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.